This week on Video Game Takeout, we take a look at Broken Sword: Shadow of the Templars for the Game Boy Advance. Broken Sword was a series of adventure games released for the PC starting back around 1996. The game I'll be looking at in this review is the first in the series, called Shadow of the Templars. The name was different in different territories, so you may know it as something slightly different depending on where you live. This game was also released for the PlayStation, so you might have played it there too. Let's get one thing out of the way. The biggest problem with this game is that it's on the GBA, and the limited card space takes away a lot of what made Broken Sword interesting and unique. The first thing you'll notice if you've played this game before is that the full motion video has been replaced with still pictures, and there are only about 10 pictures for the whole scene. The video in the game blew me away back in '96. I had never seen anything like it. Well, that and the dialogue that went with it. The problem is, that's missing too. Back when I played the original, the first scene really set the tone for the whole game. With its awesome narrator-driven storyline and lush hand-drawn video sequences, it was like nothing I had seen before. Switch to the GBA though, and it's a whole different story. First, it's been a while, and so the whole thing has lost a little bit in terms of cutting-edge technology. But the GBA doesn't even do the things that made the game so awesome in the first place. The one positive is that they kept the music as intact as possible for the GBA, and it still sounds great. I used the PC music for the review because it sounded slightly better, but the GBA does a great job of emulating the original. But rather than just tell you about it, I want to show you short scenes from the intro of the game to give you a better idea of the differences.
Paris in the fall, the last months of the year and the end of the millennium. The city holds many memories for me, of cafes, of music, of love, and of death.
I'm not going to show you a ton of gameplay in this review because it's kind of like watching someone else read a book. Like most adventure games, the majority of the gameplay is dialogue driven, and since the characters don't talk in this version, that leads to a lot of reading, which is fine, but it's not thrilling to watch someone else do. So let's move on. I don't want to overemphasize the difference between the PC and the GBA versions, but I feel like if you can't do it right on a handheld, then just don't do it. With that in mind, let's lower our expectations and assume that all this stuff simply couldn't fit into a GBA cart. We start the game and two things are apparent. One, the graphics have been severely brought down in resolution, and two, the game controls differently. So let's take a look at the graphics first. Here's a comparison of the first screen of the game, first from the PC, and now from the GBA. Now let's look at the cafe in the beginning of the game, first on the GBA, and now on the PC. The difference is pretty clear. The GBA graphics range from functional to bad depending on how busy the scene was to begin with. If a room had a lot of stuff in it, then it probably doesn't look so good. Now let's get back to the control difference. The original PC version was a point-and-click adventure game where you controlled the cursor. In the GBA game, you control the character George directly. I actually think this is really good because moving the cursor with the D-pad could have been a nightmare. Instead, it's easy to use and makes the conversation trees easy to navigate. So with the graphics severely cut back and the voices completely removed, can this game really be any fun? Well, it kinda depends on your expectations. If you've never played the game before, then it might just seem like a decent adventure game with some pretty good graphics for the GBA. But if you've played the game on PC, I think you're going to find the game to be pretty disappointing. Without the voices, all the people in the world lack character that they had on the PC. The loss of the video and the downsizing of the characters in the game hasn't helped this either. The one bright spot is that the story is still the same, so if you don't mind reading all the lines, it's still got a pretty good base there. Honestly, I wish they would re-release this game for the DS and restore it back to its former state. If it was on the DS, it could have all the video and probably most or all of the dialogue. Plus the controls could go back to being point and click. Add that to the great story and the awesome music, and it would be a must-buy in my opinion. Failing that though, I'd say the PC is the only way to play it. It's kinda hard to get working on a modern PC, but DOSBox or ScumVM should work well. I really can't recommend the GBA version unless you're dying to play a new adventure game and you've already played the other great portable adventure games like Phoenix Wright or Hotel Dusk. The story is great, but the cuts make the game a shadow of its former self. If you love adventure games, do yourself a favor and track down the PC version of this game instead. It's a classic and much more deserving of your time and money. Well, that's it for this week's show. If you want to catch up on previous episodes, head over to videogametakeout.com where you can watch all the episodes of my show, as well as a bunch of other great shows like the Game Room Blitz and RetroWare TV. Speaking of the RetroWare TV guys, they made a forum section for me, so if you want to ask a question, leave a comment, or just talk to other people that watch the show, you can follow the link on my site to the forums. Or you can just email your questions directly to me at videogametakeout@gmail.com. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'm Ben. Have a great week.